So let's start off with the beginner, the absolute beginner in mind. How long should you practice? Welcome to the channel. My name is David, and if you're new here on this channel, I love breaking down everything that is Spanish guitar for the absolute beginner who wants to learn how to play this style. So let's start off with the beginner, the absolute beginner in mind. Start off small. Now, I like to recommend 15 to 20 minutes to start off because practice is going to be a new habit that you have to build into your life. And it has to be something that's achievable and something that you can call a win at the beginning. Now, practicing the guitar, unless you were doing it before already, it's going to be a new habit that you have to incorporate into your regular life. Whether that's only going to be 3 times a week, or maybe you want it to be 5 times a week, or maybe you even want to shoot for a daily practice session. But it's going to be a habit that you have to incorporate into your regular life, and it has to be something realistic. So starting small just makes it easier to build into your regular lifestyle. And not only that, but if you aren't used to playing the guitar and you are an absolute beginner, you don't want to go that much longer because your hands aren't used to it. So you're going to start feeling pain, and you also have more of a chance of injury if you start shooting for the stars and going for the hour practice right away. Now, another reason to start small is because if you don't know how to optimally practice yet, and you're just practicing with 5 of the notorious habits that we just talked about on our podcast, then you're just going to be wasting time. You're going to be wasting an hour of your time if you're trying to shoot for that full hour. Another reason to start small is because of injuries. Now, just like if you started going to the gym from not going at all, you don't want to go all full intensity for that full hour workout. You want to start off smaller with a lot lighter weights, with a lot of light resistance training to get used to it and build up to it. Same thing goes for our hands. Don't think that we can't get injuries in our hands easily. Especially as a beginner, you might be holding too much tension or holding bad form or bad posture. Maybe you're holding your shoulder too high and holding a lot of tension here. Maybe you're pulling too hard at the strings. All that, if you do it for longer periods of time, you're just going to increase your chances of injury, which will hinder your performance, hinder your progress. Worst case scenario, you do get a serious injury where you have to stop playing for several weeks, and then it will just kill your whole momentum. So, as you've noticed, there's a few different reasons of why you don't want to start big. And then lastly, I'm sure most of you want to get the most bang for your buck. If I could get the same results with 30 minutes that I can with 2 hours, then why would I want to practice for 2 hours? So start seeing what type of results you can get with 15 to 20 to 30 minutes before you try moving on to an hour or longer, if you even have that amount of time to practice or schedule that in. Now, it's always going to be a lot easier to build up and realize how much of a difference adding an extra 10 minutes is making to your practice session than starting up here and then trying to figure out, can I still do that much and get the same results by cutting my practice session? It just doesn't make sense. It's always better to start at the bottom so you can start measuring your results and go upwards. So on the latest episode of my podcast, The Spanish Guitar Mastermind, I had on an esteemed colleague, Diego Alonso from Diego Alonso Music. And we broke down 5 of the most notorious and biggest mistakes that a lot of aspiring guitarists make with their practice session. So let's see what Diego Alonso had to say about the optimal practice length for his beginner guitarists.
I think a lot of students think that it's got to be an hour or it's got to be 2 hours, but it doesn't. It has to be consistent, and 15, 20 minutes is perfect.
Nobody wants to waste extra time if you don't have to. It's about getting the most progress within the smallest amount of time that you can.
What I find is that beginner, especially the younger beginners, so if they're teenagers or even younger, then I give them a maximum of 15 minutes. So that's, again, their schedule is limited, right? And they have 15 minutes to do what they need to do. If they're maybe a little bit older, maybe they've played any kind of instrument, they've got more dexterity, maybe 20 minutes. But what I do is 15-minute max, 3 days a week is what I have my beginners start with, right? And then they have to first show me that they're practicing correctly in order for them to get another 5 minutes, right? So then 20 minutes. And then if they're practicing correctly, then maybe 10 more minutes and so forth. So it's progressive, right? And the idea is to eventually, as long as the practice is consistent and is going well, then I'll start to increment it.
Now, whether you want to just be a hobbyist and play guitar as a side passion, or you eventually want to reach mastery at a concert guitar level, I still feel that this would still be the same place to start for either journey. The only difference would be as you move along in your journey, the amount of progress and time you put into it may change, because to reach concert level mastery is definitely going to be a little bit different than just trying to play as a little side passion. Now, for the hobbyist, side passion guitarist, the length of your practice as you progress is just going to depend on the logistics of your own lifestyle and what works for you. I've seen people who make progress as long as they're consistent with 30-minute sessions and don't increase from that length. And they're able to maintain a nice level of progress, and they're happy with their results, able to play some pieces that they can enjoy and enjoy guitar. That's what it's all about, especially if you're doing it as a side passion. Also accepting your limits. Maybe doing it as a side passion only allows you to go to a certain level because you can't commit any more time, and you just have to accept that and be happy with that. Maybe you're not gonna be able to play certain Paco de Lucia or high-level concert mastery pieces. But that said, I don't like to negate or put any limits on any of my students because I've always seen exceptions to all cases. It just depends on the students. Some students are gonna need a little bit more practice and focus than other students who can get a little away with a little bit less. And if you're trying to reach concert level mastery, or you're getting your bachelor's or your master's in music performance, then yes, that's a whole nother scenario and a whole nother game, and you will need to eventually reach that 2 to 3 hour plus practice scenario on a daily basis. So one last tidbit that I found interesting from my interview with Diego Alonso. He found some research that points us to the optimal time to schedule in your practice sessions during the day. Yes, we talked about how long and how to organize them, but maybe you never thought about when is the optimal time. Now, before I show you the clip, I'll dare to say that the most optimal time to schedule in your practice session is the time that best works for you. The time that you can commit to the most, and you know that you won't have any temptation from straying off. But let's see what the studies say.
What I found in the research on scheduling is that one of the most effective ways to schedule is to schedule after or before specific events that happen to throughout your day. For example, before or after breakfast, before or after lunch, before or after dinner.
Okay.
Right? Now, just related to that, there is also related research that shows us that after we eat, our minds are not in the best place. Cognitively, we can be a little more tired. So it tends to be better to practice before any kind of meal. Personally, I have a session in the morning before breakfast, before working out, anything. I have another session usually right before lunch. And sometimes if I'm lucky, I have another 30-minute session before I go to sleep after the kids are down and that kind of thing.
So as you can see, the length of your practice sessions and how you can structure them isn't a one-size-fits-all. It's all about figuring out what works for you so you can maintain it on a consistent basis. So while I'm not able to give you a specific answer since I'm not exactly sure who's behind the screen, I hope I gave you enough information and insights so that you can decipher what exactly is an optimal amount of time and how to structure your own personal practice sessions.